Check out the link in the description if you haven't seen the first 3 parts. Speedy recap. Aizawa is out investigating Aiko's past to protect her and running errands. Mike is watching her after giving her a guitar lesson, and she is currently outside while Mike makes a snack. You climbed up on the wall to sit where you and Aizawa normally watched the sunset. Everything looked totally different with the sun climbing high. It would be directly overhead in an hour or so, and the landscape looked bleached of color and filled with blindingly warm sunshine. You noticed 3 boys walking down the alleyway some distance away. You stared curiously. They were varied heights, but all around your age. The tallest had brown hair and a neat buzz cut. The second tallest had messily grown-out blonde hair, with a skateboarder vibe in the way he dressed. It was the shortest that immediately captured your attention. His undeniably purple shock of hair fluffed up as though he'd been electrocuted. The boys were walking away, so you couldn't see any of their faces until the purple-haired boy turned to face the other 2, revealing that his irises and eyebrows matched his hair color. You pulled out your earplugs to hear their conversation. None of them had noticed you yet. "So," the purple-haired boy said, as though he didn't care about anything, one way or another. "What was it you wanted to talk about?" The blonde guy stepped forward. "Shinso, you're a good friend." The purple-haired boy watched with an expression that was hard to read, as the boy went on. "You're so fun to hang out with, and we really like you. So we've decided to let you in on our plans. How would you like to never have to do homework again in your life?" Shinso, the purple-haired boy, watched him with the same hard-to-read expression. "What's your plan?" The blonde guy's voice dropped to a whisper, and even your superhuman hearing could only make out a couple words over the distance. You heard brainwash and teacher. You were extremely curious about what they were talking about, especially as you noticed the purple-haired boy's expression change subtly. "Is this why you befriended me?" he asked. His eyes almost looked hurt, but you saw his lip curl in disgust, and decided it was actually just a gleam of contempt you'd seen. He put a hand on the back of his neck, grinning bitterly, as though at his own foolishness. "Don't be ridiculous, dude," the buzzcut boy put in. "We want to be your friend no matter what." Shinso lowered his hand, looking at the other 2 boys perceptively. "Then I won't be brainwashing anyone for you." The other 2 boys looked irritated in their body language. "Of course," the blonde one tried again. "We think it'd be super cool if you do help." Shinso stared at them coldly. "No." "I take it back!" the buzzcut boy yelled, losing his nice guy attitude. "You're only our friend if you help us." Shinso smiled without joy. "That's what I thought," he stated, as though expecting to be disappointed. He turned and continued walking. You saw the other 2 boys look at each other with shared anger, nod subtly, then advance towards the purple-haired boy. The buzzcut one seemed especially aggressive. You noticed him raising his arm as though preparing to punch Shinso. "Look out!" you yelled, and the boys all spun around in surprise. Shinso's eyes widened when he saw the upraised fist of the buzzcut boy who had snuck up behind him. Your superhuman agility helped you to easily reach them in a moment, and you stood by Shinso, glowering at the boy who'd tried to punch him. You were about Shinso's height, so the boy towered over you. For a second, memories flashed through your brain, crippling you mentally, and you stumbled. The buzzcut boy laughed. "What a klutz. Is this your friend, Shinso?" Shinso glanced at you neutrally, but ignored the question, and asked one of his own, "You're a sore loser, aren't you, Kai?" The buzzcut boy laughed. "You," he started. Then, strangely, his eyes went empty, and his hands dropped to his sides. It was kind of scary. The blonde boy, standing behind him, looked on with widening eyes. "You said you wouldn't brainwash anyone!" he yelled at Shinso. Shinso paused at that. "No, I said I wouldn't brainwash anyone for you, remember, Sano?" He smiled ironically. The blonde boy snarled with fiery eyes. You shady. He was cut short as he too went blank-eyed. Go home, Shinso told them, as though he'd run out of energy to talk. The two boys began walking away with the same expressionless eyes. You stared. They just obeyed? If you could make anyone do anything you wanted. This quirk was pretty scary. Shinso glanced sideways at you, his purple eyes observing your fear and nervousness as you watched what his quirk could do. Then his expression turned neutral again, and he turned and continued walking away. You shook yourself. Wait a second. What were you doing? You knew exactly what it felt like for people to judge you for your quirk, for your uncle to hate you for it. Aizawa had been the first to tell you that there was nothing wrong with your quirk, and the fact that you were starting to believe him was lifting a burden from you. You wanted to be like Aizawa. You ran, catching up to Shinso. Darn, you didn't know how to talk to people. Hi, you tried. Shinso glanced at you reluctantly, still looking bored and neutral. What is it? You searched for words. I like your hair. Your face immediately flushed in awkwardness. Was that really the only thing you could think of? Your first thought had been to think of a compliment, and that was the best you could come up with, off the top of your head. Shinso stopped short, staring at you. Come on, think. What could you say to make him your friend so that he didn't feel judged for his quirk? His flat, tired stare suddenly struck you with inspiration for the best compliment. You smiled widely as you opened your mouth and exclaimed, You remind me of my dad. Silence. Shinso stared at you in disbelief. Had you done it wrong? You shifted uncomfortably. You'd never made a friend before. You'd always been too nervous. Spending time around Aizawa was making you feel more ready to try new things. But on second thought, this was extremely awkward. Shinso examined you, shifting awkwardly, and slowly allowed a dry grin onto his expression. You're even worse at making friends than I am, he observed, genuinely amused. His bluntness somehow made you feel better. Maybe because you were used to Aizawa. Yeah, you laughed. Shinso chuckled. Well, you don't have to act nice to me. I know you're scared of my quirk. You hesitated, thinking about it. Well, it's true that you could get away with a lot of bad things with a quirk like that. Shinso watched you with his tired, ironic eyes. But, you continued, you aren't scary, so that means your quirk isn't either. Shinso appeared to be taken aback. You don't think I'm scary? You shook your head without hesitation. Of course not. You remind me of my dad. Shinso gave you another odd look. You really don't know how to talk to people, do you? Not at all. You grinned, glad that he understood that. Shinso stared at your infectious grin and mirrored it with a dry smile. You're an odd one, shorty, he told you. My name is Aiko, and I'm the same height as you. He chuckled, but most of the girls in our class are taller than the boys, because we'll all get our growth spurts later, so I'm going to be taller than you. You considered that. Wait, our class? Shinso stared at you. We go to school together. I sit in the back of the classroom, but I remember when you were transferred in last week. He glanced at your cat ears and hesitated for a second. What? You asked. I was just seeing if they were really real. Looks like they are, he said wonderingly. Yep, you said shyly. Letting everyone see your quirk was still new. Want to feel them? You had no idea if that was the polite response, but you were doing your best to guess. Shinso hesitated, then reached out and gently stroked the soft fur of your ears, feeling them between his fingers. It was really nice, actually. You closed your eyes happily. Shinso pulled his hand away, looking happy and uncertain and embarrassed all at the same time. You react to that like a cat would too, he chuckled. You were interrupted by Mike yelling, Food's ready! you said hurriedly. I'd better go. Wait, want to come meet my uncle? Shinso looked reluctant, like he was going to decline, and suddenly you really wanted him to meet Mike and Aizawa, so that they could see you'd made a new friend. You couldn't keep this happiness to yourself. Come on, you said, grabbing his arm eagerly before he could say no. My house is just over this wall. You led him to the right spot and hopped lightly up. Shinso stared at you, eyes swirling with hesitation. What are you waiting for? You questioned after a long moment. It's just... Shinso rubbed his neck. That's pretty high. I'm not sure I can jump up. Oh, you considered. You laughed at your own foolishness. I guess I forgot that not everyone can move like a cat. Dad can. This remark didn't surprise Shinso. Kids generally inherited their quirks from one of their parents. Little did he realize that your dad's cat-like agility was not part of his quirk. Come on. You stood up on the wall, gesturing towards the front of the house. You can just go to the front door. I'll go inside and open it for you. Well, Shinso started, but you'd already leapt down behind the other side of the wall. Okay, he said, rubbing his neck. You ran into the house eagerly. Mike was setting a hot pan of hash browns down on the table. Hey, kid, come eat! You ran straight past him. I have to go let my new friend into the house. What? Mike snapped up so fast that his sunglasses went askew, revealing his intense green eyes. So, in the 10 minutes that he'd been preoccupied, some stranger had gained your trust and convinced you to let them inside? Mike caught up to you and placed a hand on your shoulder as you opened the door. He was prepared to stare down any weirdo and yell them into oblivion if necessary. His glare was met with empty air. His gaze slowly traveled downward. A slightly confused Shinso stared up at him. Oh, hey kid, Mike commented, thoughts of using his quirk evaporating. Shinso! You bounced around happily. This is my Uncle Mike! At hearing you introduce him as your uncle, Mike's heart felt a pang of sentiment. You glanced at him in confusion as he swiped away tears. Uncle? This is Shinso. He's going to my same school. It's nice to meet you, Mike responded, worries gone now that he'd heard your explanation. It's a pleasure, Shinso said, eyeing Mike warily. Shinso hesitantly followed you inside, observing the empty main floor, the electric guitars across the room, and the table with the pan of hash browns. This was all super weird. He was used to people looking at him with suspicion and keeping their distance once they knew his quirk. Your trust seemed too fast, and it put him on edge. Is there a reason that the door was left open? A familiar voice grumbled. Dad! You yelled, running and crashing into him with a hug. Aizawa stumbled, unable to hug you back since he was holding a few grocery bags in each hand. Shinso's jaw dropped. Eraserhead? Eraserhead? Aizawa noticed Shinso, and his eyes narrowed. Who's this, Mike? Mike offered a grinning shrug as you looked up at Aizawa and answered, This is my new friend, Shinso. We go to school together. Surprised, Aizawa examined your expression. You looked ridiculously happy with yourself. He set down the groceries on the nearby kitchen counter and walked over to Shinso. The purple-haired boy was looking on with wide eyes. From the details he could immediately observe, the kid seemed like a serious type. He hadn't spoken yet, and there were dark circles under his eyes, but he didn't seem dangerous. So, you're in Aiko's class? Yes, sir, Shinso replied nervously. You joined them, standing next to Shinso. And you're her friend? Shinso hesitated, feeling the pressure from your happy gaze and Aizawa's stare. He thought about all he'd observed about you so far. You were awkward, but in a genuine way he'd really missed during all his times with fake friends. He hadn't realized how much he'd needed that, until you talked with him just now. That was probably the first time he'd actually laughed in months. Was it too crazy to hope? We just met, he admitted reluctantly. so I don't think I can say that yet, but I hope we'll be friends, sir. Aizawa's keen gaze held Shinso's. His first impression had been right. A serious type. You're honest, he remarked dryly. Aiko is new to your school, and having someone she knows will be helpful. I'm glad to meet you, Shinso. Aizawa turned away. His eyes locked onto Mike, who was leaning against the wall, whistling. Mike. He grabbed his friend's arm. I need to talk UA business with you for a second. He pulled Mike into his study, which was pretty much the only room with a door on the main floor, and shut the door. Your arm was immediately seized by Shinso. You glanced at him in confusion, noticing how his wide, purple eyes stared after where Aizawa had gone. Aiko? He questioned urgently. When you said I reminded you of your dad, did you mean Eraserhead? Yeah? You responded. Shinso's purple eyes went starry with happiness. You laughed, understanding. He's amazing, isn't he? You enthused. Yeah, Shinso breathed. He's saved more people than almost any other underground hero. Thousands, probably, but it's hard to know, because he doesn't keep a record of his work. You only hear from second-hand accounts. He's strategic and insanely effective, even though he doesn't have a combat quirk. He leveled up through sheer training. My dream is to become the kind of pro he is. You looked sideways at Shinso's starry eyes and smiled with pride at the way he described your dad. I know what you mean. I want to be like him too. Shinso looked curious. Do you want to be a pro hero? You hesitated. Maybe. Fighting kind of brings back bad memories for me. But I definitely want to be someone. You searched for the right words. Someone who helps people grow. There was no denying how much you'd changed in the last couple weeks alone, and it was all because Aizawa was there for you, supporting you, saying the right words, helping you leave your fears behind. It was like he saw more of you than you could, and was helping you figure yourself out. Shinso nodded. His eyes sparked with curiosity, but it seemed better not to ask about what bad memories you were referring to. Not now, at least. Meanwhile, in the office room, Aizawa glowered tiredly at Mike. Hizashi, were you being careful? Letting that boy in? Mike grinned. He's what, 8 years old? Getting overprotective, Shota? Aizawa glowered more. I don't think he means any harm, but I need to be extra cautious, since not everything is wrapped up with Aiko's past. What do you mean? Mike asked sharply, dropping his cheerful tone. Aizawa sighed tiredly, then brought Mike up to speed on the facts of the case, that an unknown person had paid your phony alcoholic uncle to raise you under terrible conditions, that erasure didn't work on your quirk, even though you could shapeshift, and so on. Their goal is unclear, Aizawa said irritably, and we don't know how much we've disrupted their plans. Mike paused thoughtfully. They were controlling Aiko's life for years. They had a long-term plan with her. So that's why you're worried? Aizawa looked into space broodingly. Yes. Hello, it's Anyake. I'm pausing there. The more I write this storyline, the harder it is to find good places to stop. I've already written the next part, and I'll upload it real soon. The only way to know exactly when is to hit the notification bell, because I myself do not know. You'll find all links in description, previous 3 parts of the story, Discord, Instagram, and Wattpad. Take care and have a great day.